It's going to be a bilingual event. So if you speak French or if you speak only French or only English, you can ask if you didn't get yet a machine over there. Please raise your hand if you need. Mark is going to give them to you. So if you have it, you just open, click, and then you can hear in French or in English whatever you need. Okay, when we speak French, you speak French. When you speak English, we hear English. Pierre, you can say thank you right now because usually we forget. There is someone translating. We forget to say thank you. So from now on, I'm going to speak in French. Donc, merci d'abord d'être venu. On attend d'autres personnes qui sont encore en route. Aujourd'hui, on vous a invité parce que, en général, vous avez dû participer soit à notre conférence au Ruby Foods, où vous avez déjà entendu Thomas Walsh parler du travail que fait la FPU internationale. C'est l'ancien président de la FPU internationale. Vous êtes venu à la route de la paix, où vous avez pu voir la vision des fondateurs de la FPI, Révérend Moon et Akjan Moon, pour l'établissement d'une route internationale qui relie les pays du monde. Aujourd'hui, on vous a invité justement parce qu'on va aller un petit peu plus loin. On veut vous parler de la vision, des valeurs fondamentales de la FPU en termes de vision pour établir une paix durable. Donc, on va avoir deux conférenciers. Nos deux conférenciers aujourd'hui vont être M. Daffy et M. Famularo, que je vais vous présenter. La rencontre va se passer de la façon suivante. D'abord, on va avoir une première conférence de M. Daffy et une période de questions-discussions. On a mis la table de façon que lorsqu'ils ont fini, ils vont s'asseoir avec nous et on veut que ça aille plus loin que d'écouter, répondre, mais qu'on approfondisse ensemble la vision qu'on va vous proposer. Et même chose, après ça, M. Famularo, on va prendre un petit break, et M. Famularo va continuer sur cette vision-là. Et suite à ça, on aura un beau barbecue dehors. Et l'idée, c'est de poursuivre, continuer à développer ensemble une vision de paix et comment nous pouvons travailler ensemble vers cette vision-là. Donc, je vais introduire M. Daffy, Robert Daffy, qui est notre... Oh, désolé. Non, le premier conférencier, c'est Franco Famularo, qui est président de la Fédération pour la paix universelle Canada et qui va ouvrir la discussion sur la vision des principes de paix du point de vue de la Fédération pour la paix universelle. Franco?
Alors, qui ne parle pas l'anglais? Qui ne parle pas le français? Alors, voilà. Vous m'avez compris. You understood even if I spoke French, okay. Alors, je vais parler en français. Est-ce que je peux avoir le diapositive ici, s'il vous plaît? Voilà, ok, merci beaucoup. Alors, bonjour à tous et bienvenue. Je m'excuse, je suis un peu fatigué parce que j'étais en Corée pour 2 voyages dans les derniers 30 jours. Alors, 2 fois, aller et retour en Asie, c'est un peu... difficile pour les gens qui sont un peu plus vieux que vous, ouais, comme moi. Ouais. Alors voilà, peut-être Gino ne me croit pas parce que lui, il est plus vieux que moi. Ouais. Ça n'a pas de l'air, mais c'est comme ça. Alors, on parle aujourd'hui de la vision de la Fédération pour la paix universelle. Et aussi, on essaie de comprendre les principes fondamentaux de la résolution des conflits au 21e siècle. Et comme vous le savez bien, il y a beaucoup de conflits, pas seulement dans le 20e siècle comme le 21e, il y a beaucoup de conflits partout. Alors, moi, quand je parlais avec ma grand-mère, on parlait de la Première Guerre mondiale. C'était la première guerre qu'elle a vécue, parce qu'elle est née en 1895. Elle est morte, ça fait longtemps, mais on se rappelle de ça quand on est on est de 60 et 70 ans. On se rappelle aussi qu'ils ont vécu la Deuxième Guerre mondiale. Ils ont vécu plusieurs conflits qui existaient dans le 20e siècle et aujourd'hui, on en voit encore. Il y a l'Ukraine et la Russie, il y a Gaza et Israël, il y a des conflits en Afrique, en Soudan, au Congo, il y a des conflits un peu partout. Il y a même des conflits ici, en Amérique du Nord, entre des idées. Peut-être on ne se rend pas toujours à la violence, mais il y a les conflits d'âme et idéologiques. Alors, cette année, le thème de des Nations Unies pour 2025, pour le Jour international de paix, c'est « Agissons pour un monde pacifique ». Voilà le poster que nous avons utilisé pour la route de la paix et aussi pour le Jour international de la paix. Et « Act now for a peaceful world ». Et notre responsabilité commune dans la lutte contre les causes profondes de la division, d'injustice et de la violence. C'est notre responsabilité commune de faire quelque chose. Parce que ce n'est pas seulement que la paix, c'est l'absence de la guerre. Peut-être on n'a pas de guerre, mais il y a encore des conflits. Et il y a beaucoup de choses à faire parce que il faut agir pour construire la paix. Et il y a des gens qui ont fait ça, comme Martin Luther King, comme Gandhi, comme plusieurs autres qui ont travaillé pour la paix, et plusieurs gens qui sont fait assassiner pour leurs croyances. Et on sait que c'est quelque chose de difficile à comprendre. Alors, comment la FPU accomplit-elle sa mission? S'efforcer en collaboration avec notre réseau d'artisans de la paix, de rechercher, mettre en pratique et promouvoir les principes de vie et de travail coopératifs pour l'interdépendance. Si vous regardez les deux posters dans le coin là-bas, ça parle de nos 5 principes de base. Dieu, deuxièmement, qu'on est tous des êtres spirituels et moraux. Troisièmement, que la famille est au centre de l'éducation pour la paix. Quatrièmement, que l'idée, la valeur de vivre pour le bien-être d'autrui, c'est essentiel pour la paix. Et finalement, l'interdépendance. On ne peut pas accomplir la paix seul. Aujourd'hui, il y a des religions qui sont persécutées parce qu'ils ont un point de vue. Et alors, vous voyez, dans cette salle, il y a des gens qui représentent l'Église catholique, des autres qui sont protestants, des autres qui sont musulmans, il y a des autres qui peut-être sont juifs ou sikhs ou hindous, etc. Peut-être on pense, oh, les autres, ils ont une autre croyance. Mais à la base, il y a plusieurs de gens qui croient essentiellement à les mêmes choses et aux 5 principes que je viens de partager avec vous. Et même si on n'est pas d'accord dans des choses spécifiques de doctrine, etc., on est d'accord que la famille est centrale. On est d'accord qu'on devrait avoir la liberté de croire en Dieu et de parler de Dieu et de promouvoir notre propre point de vue. Mais on est rendu dans une situation dans plusieurs pays, comme le Pakistan, comme la Chine, comme l'Iran, comme plusieurs autres pays, et des fois même ici au Canada, où on ne peut pas s'exprimer de la façon qu'on veut s'exprimer. Alors, il faut trouver les valeurs que nous avons en commun. Alors, partager les ressources, y compris les connaissances et les opportunités pour la prospérité mutuelle, et respecter, protéger et prendre soin les uns des autres et du monde naturel en tant que membres d'une même famille humaine ayant une origine divine commune. Alors, on partage des valeurs universelles. Les valeurs que je crois on partage ensemble sont sur les deux posters-là. Un en anglais, un autre en français. Ouais. Dieu, spirituel et moral, chaque personne, la famille, vivre pour le bien-être d'autrui et l'interdépendance, qu'on ne peut pas penser qu'on est une île et les problèmes de l'autre ne sont pas nos problèmes. Alors, respecter et protéger et prendre soin les uns des autres, il faut le faire, il faut agir. Il ne faut pas penser que c'est la responsabilité de quelqu'un d'autre. Alors, comment est-ce qu'on fait ça? On a des projets où on exprime notre soutien pour l'ONU. Les Nations Unies, ce n'est pas un organisme parfait. Ils ont des problèmes. Il y a toutes sortes de choses qui devraient peut-être changer là-bas. Mais nous sommes un ONG soutenant les Nations Unies sous l'égide de l'ECOSOC au niveau consultatif général, le plus haut niveau des ONG auprès des Nations Unies. Alors, on travaille avec les Nations Unies pour promouvoir les idées de paix et les idées pour surmonter le conflit dans notre société. Alors, on cherche activement à renforcer les mandats humanitaires et de recherche de la paix de l'ONU et en mettant progressivement en place des infrastructures axées sur la paix, tant au niveau mondial que local, entre les partenaires en quête de paix. Alors, des réunions comme celle-ci se passent partout en 150 pays. Peut-être même aujourd'hui, il y a quelque chose qui se passe en Pérou, ou en Cuba, ou en Russie, ou en Corée, ou au Japon, ou au Vietnam. On a des activités dans tous ces pays-là, en Cambodge, etc. Parce que il faut travailler avec les gens qui sont sur la terre et aussi avec les dirigeants au niveau plus haut de notre société. Mais vous allez voir que ces gens-là qui sont dans les postes principaux, comme chef d'État, etc., ce n'est pas facile qu'ils fassent quelque chose. Mais nous, sur la terre, ou grassroots, ça se dit en français? Sur le terrain. Oui, voilà. On partage des mots communs, là. Hein? Alors, c'est ça. En mettant progressivement en place des infrastructures axées sur la paix, tant au niveau mondial que local, entre les partenaires en quête de la paix. Alors, les efforts des pays déployés par l'ONU au fil des ans. Il y a des médiations diplomatiques, disons au Haïti, ou en Moyen-Orient, ou au Congo. Il y a des efforts diplomatiques. Utilise la médiation et les systèmes d'alerte précoce pour prévenir les conflits et promouvoir des solutions pacifiques. C'est toujours le premier choix. C'est des initiatives de consolidation de paix. Et les programmes de consolidation de la paix de l'ONU et dans les pays à lutter contre la pauvreté et l'instabilité politique en attaquant aux causes profondes des conflits. C'est des belles idées, mais ce n'est pas facile. On voit, il y a une grosse population de Haïtiens ici à Montréal, peut-être 150 000 ou plus. C'est difficile de résoudre les problèmes qui existent là depuis des centaines d'années entre les diverses factions. C'est la même chose au Congo, c'est la même chose en Moyen-Orient. Pourquoi ces gens-là ne sont pas d'accord? Ils sont du même père, Abraham. Hein? Ils ont la même génétique. Ils mangent la même chose. Moi, j'étais en Palestine, ou à Ramallah, et aussi à Bethléem, et aussi à Jérusalem, et à Nazareth, puis j'ai vu que les gens mangent la même chose. Leur langue, c'est quasiment la même. Et ils sont vraiment d'un même père, d'un même grand-père, d'un même arrière-père. Ouais. Mais ils ne sont pas d'accord. Comme il y a beaucoup de familles où il y a des conflits entre frères et sœurs. Moi, j'en connais plusieurs. Vous en connaissez? Vous connaissez des familles où un frère ne parle pas à l'autre frère ou l'autre sœur, où il y a des conflits entre cousins, etc., à cause qu'il y avait de la terre qui était en commun, et quand c'était partagé par leur grand-père, ils pensaient que ce n'était pas juste parce que lui, un a travaillé plus que l'autre, etc. Ça se passe toujours. Peut-être dans des familles idéales comme les vôtres, ça ne se passe pas. Moi, j'en connais parce que ma famille n'est pas idéale. Hein? Et c'est universel. Et ces conflits entre nos familles sont élevés dans des autres situations au niveau national ou au niveau global. Tu penses de l'Ukraine, la Russie, c'est un peuple qui partage beaucoup d'histoires ensemble. La langue, la culture, la religion, mais il y a un conflit. Alors, aussi, l'ONU fait des missions de maintien de la paix. Les forces de maintien de la paix de l'ONU sont déployées pour atténuer la violence, protéger les civils et encourager le dialogue entre les parties en conflit. C'est les gens avec le casque bleu. Ce n'est pas toujours facile non plus. Alors, les programmes mondiaux pratiques et actifs de la FPU s'alignent sur le mandat des Nations unies pour la paix. Alors, on a établi un conseil au sommet pour les chefs d'État et de gouvernement. On les invite pour discuter entre eux. On a des conférences régionales et internationales pour la paix. On a des activités interconfessionnelles. Dernièrement, j'étais en Corée pour une conférence sur la liberté religieuse. Il y avait un prêtre qui était italien, mais il pratiquait en Allemagne. Et il y avait un autre prêtre qui était de la même église, mais une autre section qui était au Brésil. Ces gens-là ne se parlaient pas, ouais, et parce qu'ils étaient en conflit, parce qu'il y avait un conflit doctrinaire entre eux. Et pendant le temps qu'on était en Corée, même s'ils devaient surmonter les différences de langue, ils ont commencé à se parler. Et il m'a dit, pour la première fois, j'ai parlé avec un de ces gens que je pensais venaient du diable, parce qu'ils ont divisé notre Église. Ouais, c'était l'Église de apostolique catholique qui a commencé quand? Oui, tout le monde dit qu'ils ont commencé au temps de Jésus. Ouais. Tout le monde dit ça. Ouais. Mais on sait que parmi la voix, il y a des différences. Mais c'était vraiment bien à voir. Puis, à un moment donné, je les ai vus à la même table, qu'ils discutaient ensemble. Puis, c'était vraiment quelque chose de bien. Alors, des activités pour les parlementaires de paix, pour la paix. Alors, il y a des parlementaires partout. Des anciens parlementaires et des parlementaires qui sont au pouvoir en ce moment. On les emmène ensemble pour participer dans le dialogue. On a des conférences et des visioconférences locales et aussi au niveau international. Hier soir, j'ai participé dans une conférence internationale sur l'économie et les valeurs. Alors, il y avait des participants de l'Australie, de l'Asie, de l'Europe, même si c'était tard, et de l'Amérique du Nord et du Sud, qui discutaient ces choses-là. On a des projets comme la route de la paix. Si vous avez participé à la route de la paix, ça fait 2 semaines, je pense, le 13 septembre, ici à Montréal, Saint-Laurent, puis à Montréal, nord de Montréal. Ouais. Alors, on a vu cet développement. Alors, on essaie de faire des activités pratiques pour promouvoir la paix entre les gens de diverses religions et aussi de divers points de vue politiques. On a des gens qui sont conservateurs, des gens qui sont libéraux, des gens de gauche, des gens de droite. Il faut qu'on se parle. Même si on n'a pas le même point de vue, il faut on se parle. Et on rentre dans le dialogue. Et aussi, chaque 2 ans, nous avons le prix Sonhack pour la paix, où quelque organisme reçoit un prix pour continuer et développer leur activité, comme le prix Nobel. Ici, c'est le prix Sonhack pour la paix qui a été établi par nos fondateurs, la dame Hak Chahan et son mari San Myung Moon. Alors, les journées de la paix des Nations Unies, ça fait 43 ans, depuis 1982, qu'on partage dans les journées de la paix des Nations Unies, le 21 septembre. Ouais, mais le vivre ensemble en paix, c'est le 16 mai. C'est le 16 mai. Cette journée encourage l'harmonie, la solidarité et l'acceptation des différences afin de bâtir des sociétés pacifiques, c'est-à-dire la paix sociale. On parle beaucoup dans le monde francophone du vivre ensemble. La journée internationale de la paix, c'est le 21 septembre, ça fait quelques jours. Et cette journée promeut le cesser le feu mondial, la non-violence et une culture de paix entre les nations, c'est-à-dire la paix mondiale. À Saint-Laurent, ici, on a un monument qui était établi en 1996 pour promouvoir ce jour-là, le jour international de la paix. C'est bien. Et il y a la mission de paix mondiale de l'ONU. Ces journées de la paix témoignent de l'engagement continu de la ONU en faveur du dialogue, de la réconciliation et de l'instauration d'une paix durable dans le monde entier. Peut-être c'est un rêve, peut-être si on est cynique, c'est pas possible. Moi, je suis une personne qui questionne toutes les choses. C'est mon training académique qui me donne ce type pensée, mais je suis activiste parce que je crois que si on ne fait rien, rien ne va se passer. Si on s'assit dans notre chaise puis on critique toutes les choses que les autres gens font, comme des fois je me demande, Isabelle, pourquoi tu fais ça? Tu n'as pas autre chose à faire. Ouais? Ouais? Alors, mais j'y crois parce que c'est à travers l'action, c'est en agir, c'est quand on agit que quelque chose se passe. Alors, bien à vous qui sont intéressés. Alors, même chose en anglais. Je vais le laisser là pour 2 secondes pour que les anglophones peuvent le lire. Ouais. Alors, c'est tout? Vous les avez lus? Merci. OK. Alors, il y a 8 journées. Vous voulez de nouveau? OK? Voilà. Ouais. Il y a 8 journées des Nations Unies liées à la Journée internationale de la paix. Shall I go back? OK. Oop. That's the one. Okay, I'll even read it for you. Living together in peace, observed on May 16th. This day encourages harmony, solidarity, and embracing differences to build peaceful societies, social peace. The International Day of Peace, which is celebrated on the 21st of September, promotes global ceasefire, nonviolence, and a culture of peace among nations, global peace. And the UN's global mission, these peace days demonstrate the UN's ongoing commitment to dialogue, reconciliation, and building sustainable peace worldwide. Vous voyez, je parle aussi l'anglais. OK? Alors, il y a 8 journées des Nations Unies liées à la Journée internationale de la paix. La journée de la conscience, du sport au service du développement et de la paix, du multilatéralisme et de la diplomatie au service de la paix, du vivre ensemble en paix, des casques bleus des Nations Unies, de la non-violence et la journée de la science au service de la paix et du développement et la journée de la neutralité. Alors, il y a beaucoup d'activités à ce niveau-là. Alors, je le laisse là pour ce que vous voyez en anglais. Il y a plusieurs jours où on essaie d'encourager les gens à être conscients de la paix et le besoin de faire des actions où on pense à la paix. Le sport pour la paix, la diplomatie pour la paix, le vivre ensemble pour la paix, etc. OK? Alors, pourtant, malgré tous ces efforts, la paix échappe à l'humanité depuis des milliers d'années, depuis presque toute notre longue histoire. Pourquoi? Et la réponse, mon ami Robert va vous donner la réponse pour ça. Merci.
Donc, merci Franco. On va prendre un moment de discussion, de partage par rapport à ce qui a été présenté par M. Famularo. On va l'inviter à se mettre en avant pour que vous puissiez poser des questions et faire des commentaires. M. Famularo, vous vous placez là? Oui. Ce sera plus facile de communiquer. On a un micro sans fil qui va circuler. Non, je suis désolée. On va utiliser les micros parce que c'est enregistré. Donc, OK. Si jamais vous ne voulez pas, si vous ne voulez pas être enregistré, dites-le nous
Ok.
par exemple.
So, thank you so much for that beautiful speech. What do you think the UN has done up till now for peace? You know, from the very time it was formed, in my humble opinion, it's the United States veto power that vetoes all the things that go towards peace, okay? And I don't know why it's done like that, but it is done like that. From the time it was created in 1948, the first few resolutions that were passed, the first, I don't know the first one, but I know it was resolution 2 something that said that the state of Kashmir, which was an independent state at the time of the partition, at the time of the British rule, they said that the Kashmiris would be granted a plebiscite, their choice to either be independent or join India or join Pakistan, okay? But that wasn't done. I mean, there's one aspect that I am telling you for their journey towards peace, okay? So Dr. Wayne Dyer said, ego, and I think it's only the ego that is the problem here. Ego is edging God out, and that takes me to your poster there, which is God as number one on your list of keeping people together. But this God is divided amongst the Muslims, amongst the Hindus, and I don't understand why it is divided. So I'll leave you to answer those questions. Thank you.
Thank you. These are important questions. How does the interpretation work now? It's okay? So if I speak English...
Mais ceux qui parlent français ont pas pris de...
OK, mais Pierre il est en train de traduire. Hein?
Oui.
Alors, je peux parler dans une ou autre langue.
Okay, she says you can answer in French. She can understand.
Oh, OK. Et c'est correct avec tout le monde? Hein? Oui. Ce sont des grandes questions. Et c'est compliqué. On parle de Dieu, puis comme se dit, même sur le concept de Dieu, on a les points de vue que les Juifs vont dire notre Dieu est plus grand que le vôtre, les musulmans vont dire que leur Dieu est plus grand que l'autre, les chrétiens vont dire notre Dieu est bien plus grand que l'autre, et même les hindous vont dire que leur Dieu est plus sage et plus vieux que les autres, parce que leur culture est plus vieille que la nôtre. Alors, il faut accepter qu'on doit avoir la liberté de rentrer dans le dialogue sur des questions fondamentales comme ça. Alors, je me rappelle, dans les années 80, on a initié des conférences sur Dieu. On les appelait conférences sur Dieu, God Conference. On rassemblait des gens de diverses religions pour discuter ce point-là. On parle aussi des Nations Unies qui ont été établies en 1945 et après formalisées dans les années après. On a la Déclaration des droits universels qui a été écrite principalement par un Canadien, John Pumphrey. Il était ici à McGill, hein, à l'Université McGill à Montréal. Et il a construit cette déclaration des droits universels, mais il était d'origine chrétienne. Et quand il est rentré en dialogue avec les autres Chinois, Russes, etc., ils ont dit non, oui, peut-être. Alors, vous pouvez vous imaginer, dans les années 40, après la guerre mondiale, il y avait un débat idéologiques. L'Union soviétique, par exemple, qui faisait part de les Nations unies parce qu'ils ont participé dans la Deuxième Guerre mondiale avec les Américains, avec les Anglais et avec les Français contre l'Allemagne. Ils ont dit, mais garde, nous sommes un pays athée. Alors, ce conflit idéologique a rendu les choses bien plus compliquées qu'ils devraient être. Et après, on a vu quand ce que la Chine a rentré dans cet organisme des Nations Unies, un autre pays communiste qui n'acceptait pas l'existence de Dieu, aussi un pays dévoué à l'athéisme, hein, les choses sont devenues plus compliquées qu'on voudrait. Alors, à la base, c'est un problème idéologique qui doit se résoudre. Là, ça a l'air un peu peut-être impossible, hein, mais il y a des forces dans notre monde, un qui accepte Dieu et accepte la liberté de croyance, et un autre qui ne l'accepte pas. C'est ça le conflit. The microphone. The microphone. Okay.
What is the solution? What is Quelle est la solution? Elle demande quelle est la solution.
It's in my presentation.
Okay.
I'm going to deal with that.
OK, il va répondre à tes questions. He's going to answer your questions. He's going to answer your question. Shamina. OK?
Because, you know, over here,
Donnez le micro.
We have to give it
yeah,
to other
go
people.
ahead. It's like we're all converted already. You're preaching to the converted. We're all converted.
He says we're all converted in
I think you should have a conference, public conference. You should have a public conference and present this.
OK.
Good idea. Quelqu'un d'autre?
Oui, je salue, docteur, l'implication de la FPI pour la paix. Oui, vous avez raison de dire que ça devrait, chaque être humain devrait en prendre conscience, que c'est notre responsabilité à nous tous. Moi, j'ai une petite question. Avez-vous l'idée pour la ville de Montréal de l'implication des communautés religieuses, de différentes églises pour la paix? Est-ce qu'on organise encore ce qu'on appelle autrefois des réunions interconfessionnelles ici dans la ville de Montréal, au stade actuel?
Alors, la première semaine de février, c'est c'est la semaine interconfessionnelle des Nations Unies. Alors, on a un réseau de leaders religieux. Je ne sais pas si vous étiez là dans le mois de février dernier, où on avait des leaders religieux ici de plusieurs diverses religions qui ont participé. Alors, c'est ça notre effort. C'est quasiment dans la même semaine. La semaine avant, je pense, c'est la prière écuménique de l'Église chrétienne. Et la semaine après, c'est la semaine de l'harmonie interreligieuse. Alors, en faisant des activités comme ça, on pense qu'on peut avancer le programme du dialogue interreligieux. Le problème, Père Adrien, est que la majorité des églises, la majorité des religions, ils ont l'attitude que c'est une perte de temps. Parce que le dialogue interreligieux ne nous amène pas de dons ou de dîmes à chaque église, Et souvent, ça ne nous emmène pas des nouveaux membres à notre Église. Alors les gens disent, mais pourquoi vous participez dans ces activités interconfessionnelles? Ça nous coûte de l'argent, puis on perd nos membres des fois qui deviennent intéressés dans une autre Église ou une autre religion. Vous voyez, c'est difficile. Et souvent, on voit que les églises et les mosquées, les diverses religions, ils mettent quelqu'un dans cette responsabilité qui n'a pas beaucoup de pouvoir et pas beaucoup d'influence. C'est de pitié, mais c'est un problème qu'on a parce qu'on n'est pas capable d'aller au-delà de notre propre religion ou de notre propre dénomination. Même le dialogue entre chrétiens, hein, catholiques, protestants, pentecostistes, Église unie, anglicans, luthérens, etc., les gens pensent, pourquoi qu'on fait ça? Ils vont voler nos sheep. Ils vont voler nos moutons. Alors, il faut faire attention. Moi, Isabelle est dans mon église. Si elle participe avec les pasteurs à Montréal-Nord, je vais penser, oh, ils vont la voler. Ils vont la prendre dans leur propre sein. Alors, c'est toujours un débat et un défi pour plusieurs groupes religieux de toutes les diverses dénominations. Garde, chez l'islam, il y a les sunnis, chiites et plusieurs autres minorités. Une fois, on a invité quelqu'un de Ahmadiyya. Un des imams ici à Montréal m'a appelé, m'a dit, mais pourquoi tu as invité cette personne-là? Ce n'est pas un vrai musulman. Et c'est ça le défi qu'on a. Hein? Ça fait une vingtaine d'années de ça, mais je me rappelle bien qu'il avait des problèmes à voir quelqu'un d'une autre dénomination. Hein? Et c'est comme ça. Alors, il y a des choses à surmonter. Oui, Isabelle.
Donc, moi, je pense qu'il existe des efforts. Le thème cette année, c'est agissons. Okay? Donc, agissons. On a le président du Conseil des leaders religieux de Montréal-Nord ici. C'est un organisme qui a été mis en place à Montréal-Nord où tous les leaders religieux sont invités chaque mois à se rencontrer. Je fais partie d'un forum interreligieux dont la base est au Centre canadien de communisme. Tous les ans, on offre sur un thème spécifique, on offre des conférences, des concerts interreligieux. Je pense que chacun de nous, dans notre milieu, on doit promouvoir ça. Parce qu'en fait, Franco parlait des différents dieux, mais en fait, il n'y en a qu'un. Chacun définit son Dieu différemment, mais il n'y en a qu'un. Créateur de l'unité, de l'univers, il n'y en a qu'un. On le définit différemment, mais ensemble, on partage des valeurs communes. Et ces valeurs-là, si on travaille ensemble, on peut les promouvoir dans la société. Si on se met tous ensemble, les représentants religieux, les religions, on est le réseau international du monde qui a le plus de membres et qui a le plus de pouvoir. Si on arrêtait de se batailler ensemble, on a l'impact, on a la capacité de remettre Dieu au centre de notre société. Donc, il faut agir le maximum possible, chacun dans nos réseaux. Travaillons pour des conseils interreligieux dans nos arrondissements. Agissons avec les organisations qui existent déjà, soyons présents avec eux, soutenons-les, faisons-en partie, agissons parce qu'on est, nous, les religieux du monde entier, on représente le réseau le plus important, qui est la plus grande force de faire une différence dans le monde, si on est unis. OK.
Merci le président et puis bon retour. Bien, puisqu'on avait comme thème pour cette année, agissons pour un monde pacifique. Cette semaine, le président des États-Unis, Donald Trump, disait que les Nations Unies n'ont rien fait pour améliorer et maintenir la paix. Qu'est-ce que vous pensez de cette déclaration?
C'est Marc, tu peux me donner une petite traduction là? Pour les autres aussi. Translate the essence.
Il dit les États-Unis ont rien fait.
Non, Nations Unies n'ont rien fait pour maintenir la paix dans le monde.
OK. Les Nations Unies,
Ouais.
OK, ils font pas grand-chose pour maintenir la paix dans le monde. C'est quoi? Qu'est-ce que...
OK.
Si le thème disait agissons
Trump, il a dit, je hais les ennemis.
Oui, j'ai entendu dire ça, que ça fait quelques jours qu'il a dit ça aux Nations Unies, qu'ils ne font pas grand-chose, mais lui a tout fait. Ouais. Il a résolu le problème entre le Congo et le Rwanda, entre l'Arménie et l'Azerbaïdjan, entre l'Inde et le Pakistan. C'est lui qui a tout fait. Puis dans 7 pays, je ne savais pas, entre l'Égypte et Soudan. Ouais. Alors, c'est lui qui a tout fait. OK. Alors, il faut faire attention ici parce qu'on est au Canada. Si j'étais aux États-Unis, je parlerais d'une autre façon. Mais c'est une situation, il y a une frustration aux États-Unis parmi plusieurs de gens qui disent on a investi tellement dans les Nations Unies en argent, parce que c'est eux autres qui font les plus grosses contributions. Il n'y a pas de question. Hein? C'est eux autres qui font les plus grandes contributions financières aux Nations Unies. Puis cette administration dit, regarde, vous faites rien. Vous faites rien pour la paix. Mais d'un autre côté, il y a des gens qui vont disputer ce point de vue-là. Ils vont dire, mais on a fait ci, on a fait ça, on a fait l'autre, parce qu'il y en a beaucoup de gens qui ont participé avec les casques bleus, ont participé avec la diplomatie. Mais finalement, à cause qu'on n'a pas la paix, on peut dire que personne n'a fait assez, ni les États-Unis et ni les Nations Unies. Il faut beaucoup plus, on doit faire bien beaucoup plus qu'on fait pour la paix. Oui?
Si c'est la dernière question, c'est pas d'autres questions. On va prendre le break maintenant parce qu'il faut donner le temps à M.
OK.
Daffy d'aller plus en profondeur maintenant par rapport. S'il vous plaît. Oh. Merci, merci. OK. Donc, ça va être le même format. Monsieur Daffy va nous présenter la vision au niveau plus, on va dire un peu plus profond sur les principes de paix. Suite à ça, on va ouvrir une période de questions, réponses, discussions. Donc, j'attends que tout le monde soit assis pour introduire M. Robert Daffy, qui est secrétaire général de la Fédération pour la paix universelle Canada. Merci.
Thank you, Isabelle. Merci bien. Bienvenue tout le monde. À toutes et à tous, right? À tous et à toutes. Which way? Either way. Et tout est, parce que les deux gendres, n'est-ce pas? Oui. Pas plus que ça. OK. Bon. On est d'accord. Excellent. Now I've exhausted my French, so I'm going to speak English now. Thank you for being here. It's really great to see all of you. And I hope you can understand my flawed language. I know it's not the true language. The true language is French, of course, but we do have to live in a faceted world, so c'est nécessaire, n'est-ce pas? Anyway, it's like it is. So I'm going to continue with the idea of the UPF's vision for peace, understanding the principles of conflict resolution in the 21st century. And although between the first speaker and the questions and answers, all my thunder has been stolen. Nevertheless, I will try to add something to the discussion. So let's see if I can pull that off. Let's see if this even works. Maybe I'm doing the wrong. Oh, wait. Up. Okay. So, right now I'm studying about the UN. I'm actually doing a course on the UN and its deep origins. And there's a lot of work that's been done historically because humans have always wanted to live in peace. But some of our fellow humans were not inclined that way. So, but nevertheless, from ancient times, going back to into the Greek period, let's say, in the axial period, that's so-called the Thessalonian League of Philip II in the 4th century, and in the BCE, before the current era in Greece. The Roman empiric history, Pax Romana, if you'll recall, from the 27 BCE to about 180 in the current era. That's like 200 years of peace in the Roman Empire, kind of imposed, but hey, it was peace nevertheless. People have tried to make peace in the past. In more modern times, the Peace of Westphalia in 1648. This is necessarily kind of Eurocentric a little, so please forgive me. Following the 30 Years' War, which is part of the 100 Years' War, after the northern countries, the northern part of Europe broke from Catholicism in part, and went through 100 years of conflict to settle that people wanted to and could have the right to worship outside of the Catholic Church. Okay, so Protestantism became established strongly in Europe over that 100-year period, but it was very, very violent, and it claimed more lives than the Romans killing Christians in the first 300 years of Christian history. So it was incredibly violent, but following that, countries, in fact, became countries because it was agreed to that people should have, the sovereignty should exist, borders should exist, and people should live within nations, and that they could be protected that way. Moving forward into the 19th century, the Congress of Vienna and the Concert of Europe after the French Revolution and Napoleonic Wars established a time of peace in about the first half of the 19th century. Again, it broke down, but there were continual efforts to bring nations together into some kind of an international agreement. And so after the First World War, again, after a great conflict with great loss of life, great destruction, even the leaders of societies decided to form a League of Nations. And so that League of Nations lasted from 1919 to the end of the Second World War into 1946. It's been a very difficult time to actually establish a realm of international law in the world among nations, okay? Because there's always disruptors, there are always people who say no and who turn against it. So why have all these peace efforts failed? Well, traditionally, collective human wisdom has addressed the causes of conflict through sacred texts, advocating for moral and ethical behavior. Yet, without humanity's complete acceptance of those moral statements and acting upon them, then of course they didn't take responsibility for peace, for the remedies of society. They didn't take on the ethical behavior that would be required to live in peace, okay? Because there are always potential conflicts, okay? Everybody has their own point of view. They have their own, let's say, sovereignty, okay? And so we're social beings. We live in relationship to others. So because of that, we sometimes come into conflict. And our desires, our attitudes come into conflict with the other. So unless we have an ethical foundation in our lives, a moral and ethical foundation, you know, we will run into huge problems. And that's why we can say safely that the collective wisdom, human wisdom, has been kind of collected, if you will, in sacred texts. That's why religions have emerged out of history. They've emerged because people understood gradually, and they were inspired, of course, to behave ethically in order to live well together. So there's a saying, think globally and act locally, which Kofi Annan, a former UN Secretary General, picked up on, and it was popular in the late 90s. And I have two interpretations of that idea. One interpretation is that the global aspect of it is the historical context for in which conflict originates and propagates. And the local is the more current conflict situation at our time. The other interpretation that I'd like to talk about is the level of conflict between, you know, on the individual, family, clan level, tribal level, let's say, which is more of a domestic level, and then the larger national and global, regional, global level of conflict, which is typically over territory and people, over control and benefit from people and territory, okay? And those are, you know, two different kind of ways of looking at historical conflict. And one builds on the other in each of the domains. They both operate similarly. And then back to sacred texts, you know, you brought up, Shane, about who's God, how many, which God? You know, everybody's got their own God. Well, it's a fact that religions and cultural spheres have emerged from two historical backgrounds. One is determinist, the history that's leading to a final outcome, which is typical of the religions of the book, whether it's Jewish, Christian, or Islamic. They're religions that offer a vision that's going somewhere. You want to behave properly because you want to live in the kingdom of heaven. You're going there. It's the ultimate outcome, right? And then the other types of religions like indigenous, Buddhist, Hindu, Confucianist, Taoist, which are typically of the East, except for indigenous, which is global. These are religions based on social custom, let's say, on image more than the word. So you see in those religions, you'll always see totems, you'll see the image of Vishnu or Krishna, something like that in Hinduism. You'll see Buddha's image in Buddhism. You'll see Confucius with his Analects in Confucianism. So this is more of a cyclical concept of history, that it's an eternal circle of human and natural activity that's not going anywhere except around and around and around and around and around, and around till we get it right. But nevertheless, both those approaches are still have inspired moral and ethical teachings and sacred texts. And when you examine those texts, you find that much of their content is the same, is oriented to the same thing. How to live well in the world by being ethical and moral, considerate, and so on. Okay? So, the idea is how to change bad habits and a bad mind and develop one's conscience, okay? And these sacred texts or wisdom traditions, they hold centuries and centuries of distilled wisdom and human activity where they worked out a lot of stuff in conjunction with the inspiration from above. And you come down to basically two main elements. One is refrain from destructive impulses. Across every religion, every culture, it's the same directive. And the other one is cultivate corrective virtues. Cultivate patience, kindness, truth, compassion. This is across, partout, across all the cultures. So when you ask about who's God, seems to me, I don't know, but seems to me that they originate in the same kind of impulse. It almost looks like, dare I say it, God inspired all the different faith traditions and cultures for their specific time, for their specific place, so that they can create this wellspring of ethical and moral consciousness and behavior in their people, in their respective places. Of course, now, as the world comes closer and closer together over time, we run into each other, don't we? We're here. Muslim, Christian, other faiths could be here too. But you see what I mean? We're running into each other. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I think it's a good thing, because ultimately we're all brothers and sisters. We're all family. We're family. Okay? Not everybody agrees, but I'm going to say it. See, bad behavior, so there's a universal moral grammar. I love that. A universal moral grammar in sacred texts, okay? Bad behavior is modified not by punishment alone, but by transforming character and aligning human conduct with divine or cosmic order. That's the universal grammar, moral grammar. And so, common universal examples: restraint of anger and speech, humility versus pride, self-control of desire, truthfulness and integrity, compassion, generosity, forgiveness and non-retaliation. All of these require human responsibility. That's the big if clause in all of this. If people are responsible, if people take responsibility for ethical and moral behavior, then we can live well in the world, we can get to know one another, we can appreciate and respect each other, and grow together. So in that sense, UPF's strategy is really about supporting the fulfillment of human responsibility. That's basically our the essence of what we do, we practice, and we teach by doing various things like engaging religious, political, and civic leaders into a wider collaboration to build global awareness of opportunities for peace building in every sector of society. So we convene conferences and webinars for this purpose, as you know, and you've been to many. And we build interfaith relations both on the ground and internationally. And that's extremely important dimension of this work, because at the base of things, like we say in our poster, you know, humans are spiritual and moral beings. You can't strip that out of a human being. You cannot, as much as you try. You know, atheists are religious in their atheism. It's like a religion, because we're religious by nature. So we have to accept that. It's the crisis in the modern world. We connect stakeholders with similar UN efforts to humanitarian and peace-building work through UN days. This is where we try to support the UN as the latest effort of humanity to bring humans together. It's as flawed as humans are. It's as weak as humans are. It's as contradictory, self-contradictory as humans are. I mean, except for everybody in the room here. But, you know, it's very, and you see how flawed it is at the Security Council level. It's basically split in two. Half of the country, 3 of the countries in the Security Council basically adhere to the essence of the founding principles for the UN. The other 2, no, not really. No, human rights, they signed off on it, but what do you think? How's China doing on human rights? And how about Russia throwing its young people into the war machine and getting them slaughtered by the thousands every day for a little bit of territorial gain? And the irony is that Russia and China are on the Security Council with the veto power. They're the ones who are supposed to uphold the world peace. And what are they doing? They're basically spitting on it and laughing at it and basically playing the rest of us for fools. It ain't right and it ain't proper. It's not right. Of course it's not right. So we try to connect with the important UN days that are in line with our vision and what we're trying to do. And these are Interfaith Harmony Week, as Dr. Franco mentioned, the first week of February, where interfaith peace building is being promoted. Secondly, International Day of the Families in May, strengthening marriage and family, which is also central, which is one of our key points. And then the International Day of Peace, September 21st, essentially for peace education. And part of that is our Peace Road effort, which is to highlight it through this simple activity of a bicycle ride for peace or a walk for peace. And those activities, are being done globally. I mean, we have Interfaith Harmony Week activities in probably 100 countries or more every year. We have conferences on the family in more than 100 countries every year, and the Peace Day also. So that's why we've attained the status at the United Nations as one of the elite, let's say, 150 NGOs that out of 3,000 or 4,000 NGOs that have this general consultative status, which actually we're not taking advantage of it at the UN because our work is to add to their efforts to make peace and fill in where they can't, because their members are nation states, and nation states are pulling for their own cause, their own people, their own glory, their own selfish interests, right? I mean, it's simple as that. They, you know, so as divided as the world is by nations, so they're divided at the United Nations. So, but, you know, when you look back at the history of people's efforts to try and make a peaceful situation in the world and to establish international law in the world, you know, you have to agree that, flawed as it is, the UN has added something. It's better to have had it there than not over the last 80 years. Now, we're all idealists here, so naturally we're disappointed. We're disappointed deeply by the shortcomings of the United Nations, but we're actually really disappointed in the efforts of maybe not too many hundred key leaders over the 80 years who've been driving the direction of the United Nations on the level of keeping peace in the all around the world. And these people are flawed. You know, why are they any better than any of us here? Any of us here could have the moral foundation that's higher than leaders of countries, because we stand for ethical values and we won't compromise, you know? So that brings us back to our responsibility, our teaching people to be responsible. So we gather current and former heads of state, heads of government, and so on, in international activities to promote leadership for peace among leaders who, you know, have various degrees of moral fiber, let's say. You know, some are better than others, obviously, and some are quite bad. But we gather them together and we sit them down and we give them lectures on the need to be moral and ethical. And we give them a nice meal and tell them, you know, behave yourselves and do better. You know, it's like lighting a candle inside a cave. You may not be getting a lot of light there, but it's better than complete pitch black darkness, you know? So that's the thing. And we promote interfaith action among religious leaders also on a global level, which is very important. We promote the Association of Parliamentarians, as Franco mentioned, and global partnerships through international intersectoral cooperation and interdependence and universally shared values for mutual prosperity of the whole human family. But, you know, peace education is not, it's not cheap and it's not easy. And it's not a quick fix, a Band-Aid. It's really a long-term, step-by-step, you know, often a real grind to move forward. But if we don't do it, if we leave it to someone else to do it, it may or may not get done. So it behooves us to take it on and do our part. Some of the things we've been doing in Canada, which I'm kind of proud of, is this conference we did in Ottawa in 2017, Reaching Indigenous Youth. There was a crisis of suicide in Indigenous communities in Canada that wasn't being addressed. We put on a national level conference on Parliament Hill in Ottawa, and got the Parliament, you know, members of Parliament involved and got them over there. We provided a nice lunch, so we should make sure that some of them came, you know. they have to eat anyway, so. And it was a great result because Indigenous panelists spoke to the situation. It wasn't somebody else. They talked about their own situation, and they also afterwards, the government actually disbanded the Department of Indian Affairs. They dropped the name Indian because Indigenous people are not necessarily from India. So they dropped the name Indian, which has been used since before Confederation, and they created 2 departments. Are they listed here? Yeah, Crown Indigenous Relations and Northern Affairs, that's one department, and the other one is Indigenous Services Canada. A bit small, that writing, sorry about that. But two new ministries to deal with the Indigenous Crown relations and so on. So it sparked a lot of work on the government level and other levels by bringing that to attention. And we also kind of called out the RCMP in the western provinces particularly, where lots of missing and murdered Indigenous women, for instance, were, had not been dealt with, was just ongoing and ongoing and ongoing. And we called out the RCMP that they're not doing their job. So it was, that's one conference I think we made some response there. And the second one is, I'm just highlighting some from each region. So, well, Toronto had a Canadian Veterans Day, Ambassadors for Peace program on Remembrance Day in 2023. And these are about 60 or 70 veterans from the Second World War, any other wars that they're still alive from. And they were honored for their service to their country and so on. And it was a really nice program. They really enjoyed being brought together like this, Most of them are getting old, reaching their end. And then this one we did 2 weeks ago in Montreal here, as you know, we're there. And so it was a really nice event, which took place here in Parc Baudet, and then the cyclists went across, and we went across to Parc Eusèbe Menard in Montreal Nord. That was a very nice program on both ends, with political leaders there represented, and really nice entertainment. We're promoting peace, like a peace highway, that ultimately we want to crisscross the globe and connect all people. And this is being done all over the world too. So again, it's something we're doing locally, but we're connecting to the global situation. And in other countries, many other countries, this is happening too. And then in Vancouver, Alan Wilding, our director there, introduced or inaugurated one of the projects of UPF, which is the International Association for Peace and Development, which focuses on interfaith work. So he held that conference in Vancouver in, I can't remember the year now, but it's maybe 2 years ago. This was an interesting conference right after Donald Trump visited Kim Jong-un the first time in 2018, and we held a conference on implications for world peace and whether it was going to open up the North Korean regime to the West or anything like that. We had a conference on Parliament Hill. Many parliamentarians and senators were represented there. But I can't say that we moved the needle all that far. But in any case, we brought it out. So these are some things that we've done in the last 10 years in Canada on the larger scale. So basically, we've tried to lift up leaders through Ambassadors for Peace initiative. It's to encourage leaders to be really to be exemplars, examples of peace in their own lives, and to be peacemakers in their communities, you know, in their respective areas of activity, and to support UN humanitarian peace-building efforts, such as the Sustainable Development Goals, to promote and participate in interfaith, ethical behavior, education for peace. We're affiliated to a school in New York, which is called HJ International Graduate School for Peace and Public Leadership, and peace studies are being taught there, and young people are getting educated in how to be able to go out and help mediate conflicts and help in the larger world going forward. So in conclusion, I would recommend that everyone become an ambassador for peace. Ambassador for peace. Work for peace in your circles, and especially be open to learn about another faith other than your own. And why that's important, critically important, because, you know, we say interfaith is the new evangelism. And why we say that is because, you know, trying to, you know, fulfill the commission of Christ, for instance. Go out into all the world and preach the good news till the ends of the earth, until the end of the age, the end of the age. So that's been done, accomplished. Of course, there are always little pockets here and there that haven't been conquered, let's say, but basically it's been done. And at the same time, other religions have, especially of the book, have a kind of evangelical fervor or aspect to some extent. But we have to learn to respect and celebrate every faith tradition, because we're in a conflict not with each other, we're in a conflict with no faith. We're people of faith. We're in a war, a cultural war, a spiritual war, if you will, with no faith. Okay? The world that has no faith. The world which rejects God, which rejects the Spirit. The Spirit is just something that your brain cooks up. It has no independent existence apart from the material, you know, being. So that leads to, we have to realize, that leads to serious consequences. If you think there's nothing higher than you, then you're the highest there is. God help us, you know. We're, you know what I mean? We're the best there is. We're in trouble. We're in trouble. But believe it, there's so many who think like that, and they act essentially for power, because there's no other value that trumps, I don't want to use that word, but that, you know, supersedes power, because love isn't important, because you have to be strong, you have to be in a position where nobody can attack you. Human rights have no foundation. Why human rights? You're just an animal. You're cosmic dust. You're a product of luck, of historic luck. That's what you are. That's ultimately the view of no faith. And that's what we're dealing with. That's why we, people of faith, we have to get out of, keep our doctrine air side personal and in our community. Fine, no problem. But go outside, respect, learn about, make friends with people outside your faith community, because they're also people of faith. They're also people who believe in God. They're also people who fundamentally respect a higher power. Okay? And those of us in that position are standing over and against a world which rejects a higher power. Very important. We're at that point now. So, the worldview crisis that we're in and the confusion in the world, a lot of it, crisis of faith versus non-faith. We need human solidarity. There can be unity in diversity. It doesn't mean that we're all the same. We don't have to be all the same. But we're one human family, so even though we disagree agreeably. Or we don't, anyway, I'm going to get lost in this. Anyway, we're agreeable. You know, like families have differences. We agree to disagree. We still love each other because we're still family. Ultimately, the bottom line, we're family. Okay? More than anything else. Once we get that into our heads, into our hearts, then we'll be okay. We'll go quickly from there. So I thank you for your attention. Thank you.
So, merci beaucoup, Monsieur Taffy. Il y avait beaucoup dans la présentation. Donc, on va prendre le temps d'en parler, de discuter, poser des questions, échanger des points de vue. Franco, do you want to sit together here? Donc, le micro, Marc.
One, two. Malheureusement, je dois parler en anglais. Et,
Thank you again for another insightful lecture. And I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. And basically, it all boils down to responsibility and individual responsibility. Okay? Also, it boils down to family values that start at 2 years old. If my mother and my father did not teach me those basic responsibilities of equality, that everyone is equal although they believe differently, I wouldn't be standing here today. Okay? So thank you very much.
thank you. Thank you. Well said.
Hi everybody. This is my first time actually taking the mic and attending this type of event, so excuse me if I sound a little bit nervous. But I actually wanted to take the mic today because I'm a political science student, and I'm actually working in the office of the federal MP. I was present at the Road for Peace. That's how I got to learn about this organization. I didn't know about this organization before I was invited to attend Road for Peace. I don't know if we can call it a question, but I was curious to get your opinion about how, especially the young people, the youth, my generation, we're very politicized and we are very polarized. There's a lot, people are using peace to fight each other, and I feel like, I mean, it's true, just look at how people are manifesting in the street. They claim that they're fighting for one side against another, somebody's bad, somebody's good. I feel like peace is important, but how can we as scholars of political science, people in place of leadership, head of states, can we blend something that is seen as secular, as a force of government, with a concept as abstract as peace? Because peace can mean so many different things for so many different people. And I feel like the question here is more about how can, like, what head of power do you choose to agree? Do you choose to agree to the government of the state, or do you choose to just do your own thing because of your own personal beliefs? And I think as political science student, it's very hard to be objective and scholar and also balance personal and beliefs and spirituality. So sorry, I talk a lot. I just wanted to have your opinion on that. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great question, a great thing to bring up. Actually, it's very difficult. It's really complicated in this modern world that we're in now. I think one thing we got to recognize is that history is moving along, and in history, different political, social, religious movements take place. They spend time on the stage, and then they give way to yet new ones, and so on. And generations go by, and many things happen. So in studying political science, it's probably important not just to study relative political systems, but also political history. And not only one political history, but many political histories, because Chinese political history is not the same as European, and so on. So it's very important to know, because we meet people of all backgrounds, we associate with them, we shop in the same shop with them, we meet them on the street or at work, and we interface, okay? So I think someone's turning the mic up because I had it turned away, so better turn it down a little bit again. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so important is that we're also at the end of a major age, okay? The Enlightenment values that gave rise to the political structures that we have, that we call democracy, it's badly named, but anyway, it's the idea, are exhausted, essentially. Freedom, equality, and so on. These have been taken to well past their extremes, and they're not meaningful beyond a certain point, because the freedom to kill yourself is rather a negative kind of freedom. So it's in a sense, we're waiting for something new, a new kind of values paradigm to emerge. It's not emerged yet, and so there's a great deal of confusion. At the same time, histories of different, say, communities, whether they're ethnic, religious, political communities, are advancing. And there are people at different levels, at different stages of that advancement. So, you know, there's a lot of moving parts, but overall there's great confusion. And I think much of it is that we're coming into a truly global age, but we're not there yet. We can imagine it, and we have an organization like United Nations, which is a political expression of it, but in reality, we're still operating as nation states, and we do that because we set borders because they're bad actors, you know, who want to circulate, let's say. There are people who are disruptors, professional disruptors. They'll go to any manifestation and get involved, and sometimes, you know, bring it into violence, which the original people were not intending to, you see. So we have a lot of work to do. I don't envy young people at this time, and in political science, I wonder. I think I would try to keep a sharp eye on developments in internationalism in terms of international law, because if we don't have a rules-based order, now it can be corrupted, of course. Anything can be corrupted. But we have to try to make an international rule-based order. And it's really for mutual prosperity, common cause, universally shared values. The key is universally shared values. You know, different religions, like we're saying, why is interfaith important? Because different religions have their origins and their narratives and their backstories of how they come to their values. But what's important ultimately is their values. You know, every religion promotes peace, you know, but bad actors will disrupt that in the name of their own religion and then cause backlash to their own religion and so on. So we have to be conscious of the effort to build on universally shared values, because in a family, you know, ultimately, what's the core of the family? It's love. The core is love. I don't care what anybody says, it's love. And we shouldn't be ashamed of that. It's what it is. And if it's true, if it's altruistic, if it's for the benefit of the other, if we inculcate that quality in our family, then we'll have a very harmonious family. If we, each of us, pull for our own point of view and insist on our own way, of course there's going to be conflict. So character building, you know, if you think about what life is about finally, from childhood through youth to adulthood to old age, isn't it about character building? Isn't it about becoming a person that God could say, yes, this is one of mine. Yeah, this one's mine, this one's mine. This one belongs to me, you know? That's really where we have to reflect. And then carry out our personal lives in that way, become exemplary, try to be an example in our own circles, and learn what we can and grow, because there's going to be a lot of challenges and circumstances that really will challenge you. So I want to encourage you. It's not, it's actually a beautiful life. I would say God designed it properly. It's not a flawed design. We're the flaw. If there's any flaw, it's on us. It's not on God, okay? So let's try to harmonize with how we were created, how we were designed, and what's our optimal self, okay? How can we optimize being a human being in the image of God as best we can? Okay, thank you.
Merci pour votre exposition.
Merci.
Tu as ressorti beaucoup de vertus qui est extrêmement important. Mais j'aimerais poser une question. Est-ce que vraiment la religion est l'auteur du conflit? Est-ce que la religion est le moteur ou est l'auteur du conflit?
Is religion the cause of conflict? Very good question. Very good question. It certainly looks like that a lot of the time. But religion is an expression of human longing for their true identity, let's say. What is a human? Remember the big deal a few years ago? What is a woman? What is a woman? But better question, what is a human? What's a human? What's our true identity? So it's that question which is at the bottom of all questions. And the impulse of religion is to really find our true identity. And it comes into conflict with others because everybody wants to find their identity, but we have our ideas about it. We have our traditions and what we were taught and how we were brought up, and you know, all of those things inform us. And then how can we go beyond our own spinning on our own wheel, you know? Sometimes we get caught up in our own situation so much, it's very hard to see from others' points of view. It's very important, like in a family, if your brother has a problem with you, to steel man your brother's point of view, which means to say, okay, let me see. Let me see if I can represent what he thinks, what he's saying to me, what his problem is with me. Let me try and express it so that he will say, yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. That's what I'm getting at. You know what I mean? It's hard to do. It's hard to do. And if we can do that, then we can see from his point of view, then we can see, well, maybe I could change a little bit without giving up my point of view, but I could change some things to make it, to address his problem with me. You know what I mean? I don't have to become a different person, but I should be able to respect him. I should be able to respect his point of view. If I disagree with it, do what I can to mitigate the problem, the conflict. Now maybe he's just an ornery cat, you know? He's an ornery guy. He just likes to mix it up and cause trouble. You might not be able to overcome that situation, but you do your best, you do your part, you make accommodations, and then it's on him. I mean, so it's a process of working with people, like I guess like that, and that goes for communities too, I guess, in between communities. But is that sort of what you were thinking? Did I get it at all? Yeah. It's a challenge. I mean, it's very challenging. People will not respect your point of view, and you'll feel slighted. You'll feel like, why do I have to deal with this character, you know? But overcoming myself, going the extra mile, I mean, it's like Jesus taught us, really, turn the other cheek. You know, don't repay evil with evil. And do your best to be blessed are the peacemakers, for they'll be called the children of God. Live the Beatitudes, live the gospel in that sense, you know. In terms of values, how I practice, more important than how I preach. Although preaching's important too, but how I practice is even more important, because you know how kids, they pick up on, you know, their parents, you know, I told you to be, you know, this and that. Yeah, they say, you know, they catch us all the time, right? Right away they see through double standards. So we have to be exemplars. That's the best we can do, is be an exemplar of what we teach, of what we believe. Mind and body unity. Unite our body with our ideals of our mind, something like that. Anyway, thank you. Merci.
Donc, on va conclure comme ça, mais j'ai l'impression qu'il y a beaucoup de choses qui pourraient se discuter encore. Je vais aller voir où ça en est au niveau de la préparation du barbecue, et on va se retrouver là-bas. Mais je pense qu'on a ouvert beaucoup de discussions à partir des conférences qui ont été données. Donc, merci d'être là. Je m'en reviens dans quelques minutes, je vais vérifier, à moins que Marc puisse y aller. Il est allé? Laisse-moi voir. Sinon, en attendant, est-ce que Marc est allé voir? Je pense que oui. OK. Oui. Tu vas aller voir où ça en est, voir comment on s'organise. Mais est-ce qu'il y a d'autres questions, d'autres commentaires que vous voulez faire? Enfin, Lina a parlé de tu veux revenir là-dessus?
On peut continuer à discuter 10-15 minutes, 15-20 minutes.
OK, vas-y. Attends.
Attends. Ils sont pas prêts dehors.
Thank you. Okay. J'aimerais juste revenir sur un point. I just want to talk again about a specific point I brought up earlier about how we are polarized as a society, especially young people, the youth. And I feel like how can we try to communicate between one side or the other when both sides are so passionate about their own truth? I want to bring up the most recent example will be Charlie Kirk in the U.S. and how one side think that he deserves it and the other thinks that he actually didn't. And this whole climate, especially with social media, I feel like the second you open your phone, it's all, you're bombarded with somebody says yes, somebody says no. We're confused, especially me. Personally, I'm confused between what I learn in class as like a political scientist, in quote, and just daily life and news. I don't know. I think that the question is more like, how can we communicate when we're so in our heads about our own vision of truth?
Shall I try to respond to that? Okay, yeah. Well, one thing that we need is an oasis to retreat to from the craziness of everyday life. Now, a lot of people, religious people, no problem. They have the oasis is their faith life, their individual prayer life, or their meditation life, or their community participation in their religious community, which gives people like an oasis of peace in the crazy world, right? You might wake up in the middle of the night and spend an hour in meditation, just letting your mind drift through things that are confusing, and saying a prayer. Let me understand what to do here, something like that. And that would be a good exercise, whether it's in the middle of the night or any other time. If it's a place in which you can actually let your mind be free and really go deep into yourself, because the answers are deep, deep inside, because that's where God lives, inside deep. So you got to get to that depth to get the answers, and then they don't always come in the form of a text or a memo. They come in the settling of your mind. In the settling of your mind, which is your mind goes, oh, okay, I'm not worried about that anymore. Your mind, you don't know what actually concretely about it. There's no direct, concrete directions per se, but your mind is settled. You say, okay, I can handle this. Yeah, I'm good. I mean, that's an oasis. You need an oasis. Go visit Reina. She's like a oasis keeper, She runs an oasis here. So find an oasis basically for your inner life. It's very important. Develop your inner life, and you can deal better with external situations. I hope that's valuable.
Still, she has to deal with the reality every day. Like I have to, like we have to. She's in school, and it's confronting ideology, and of course she can with herself be in peace, but still she has to deal on a daily basis with people who are completely fighting against God, fighting against family values, and how do you reach out to the other people? It's like there is no way to reach out to the other side. How do we deal with it, even though we are secure in our faith, we are secure in our own internal peace, but she will have to write essay on different things, and even the teacher might not agree with the values she's standing for.
Yeah,
And she might have to gain a degree, she might have to speak what she doesn't believe in.
Yeah, this is our education system has been weaponized in a lot of ways. It's been infiltrated, and what a lot of professors at university are doing is trying to raise social justice warriors and not teaching their students to think critically and make their own mind up, which is the mission of a university. I mean, there are plenty of people who've spoken out about this in recent times. You might think of Jordan Peterson as a Canadian example who went to the ramparts over this, with the government and so on. But and he got kicked out of the University of Toronto because he wasn't going to bow to the kind of that kind of thinking. So it's a measures need to take place that are going to correct this. That's going to take years. Okay, the first thing is to know that there's a problem here, and it's becoming clearer and clearer. University presidents are being called out, for this kind of thing. So I can't say that it's good. There's an easy answer to this problem. Just know that it's going to wash through eventually, but maybe not before you graduate, and maybe you have to write some essays that the teacher wants to hear, to get your mark. If you have to do that, hold your nose, write it, and then be ready to defend the opposite side when you got your certificate in your hand, deny everything, repudiate everything. I don't know how else to, anyway.
Yeah. I had a point, I think I forgot it, but anyways, I think that, I was about to say something, but then I forgot, sorry. I think that especially in my school, I'm studying at Concordia on a political science degree, and I feel like most of the political activism that is happening during the class, but like at school, is outside the classroom. It's a lot of student association, student movement, that people are trying to organize themselves to fight for a cause that they believe in. But I feel like in a place like a college or university, there's so many people coming from so many different places that it's hard to understand why people are fighting for a certain cause, especially with social media. Right now, this is a really huge problem, I think, especially for the youth, because people are vain in their action. They want to perform peace and manifestation to have friends, to gain clout, like we say, so like followers on media and whatever. So even in a place like school, university, where it's a place where you should be able to freely talk and gather with different people that have different opinion, that want to fight about different subject, I feel like even then you're not even sure what people are standing for, because when you bring out topics, you don't know if they're actually true and they actually believe what they're fighting for, or they just don't care. They want to go manifest because they want to skip class and they don't care about the issue that's being brought. So even if I want to start my own movement at school, other people will tell me, well, you don't even know what you're thinking about. You're just radicalized and you just watch stuff on TikTok and you just want your moment of fame. Or like it's always one extreme or the other. I feel like people lost the sense of moderation. You cannot have a conversation without someone saying, oh, well, you're far left or you're far right or you don't know, you don't even care about anything. I don't know. I feel like this is way much complicated and nobody have the answer. I feel like my generation, we have this question of what do we do now? The world is going up in flames and we're just like, at this point, we don't even care anymore because what's the point? There's a sense of like, we don't even want to believe in the world because even if you try to say something, it will backfire on you.
Yeah.
I have someone I'd like to give the... Anna, would you speak about what you are going through? Yeah, about the polarization in your involvement. Do you want to speak about it?
About our organization,
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Isabel. It's the same thing we have in our organization against gender ideology at schools. If we are against this ideology, that means we are against LGBT community and trans people and stuff like that. So they mix up things to show that you are not, you are fascist or extreme right, extreme left. Same thing happening in this cause that we are fighting for. So we did in September 20th our protest. Unfortunately, a lot of parents were scared to come support us because the Antifa was very aggressive last year, and the police had to be like arresting some of them. So it's politics, more politics. You should just fight what you think is right. Don't be influenced by your surroundings. Even if you're a student, you don't have to just obey what, because it's imposing everywhere, at schools, universities. Politics control everything. We think we are in a free country. Everyone can practice their religion and live their life, but it's not true. It's a big lie. It's not free country anymore. If you're not inside the circle they draw for you, that means you should be out. Go back to your country. A lot of people, they're already born in Canada, they're Canadian, but because they don't look white, they tell them, oh, go live in your country if you don't like this or that. But this is their country. They don't have anywhere else to go. So it's imposing everywhere. So it's political in everywhere, schools, university. But people, they don't have to obey and be influenced by everybody around you. If they backfire on you or say, oh, you're against us, that means you are that or this. Just fight what you think it's right. Don't care about others, what they say. So us, we started with thousands of parents supporting us, but because of the media, they say false information and accuse parents with different things that's not right. So we lost a lot of people. We came last time maybe 20 or maybe less. So this is what we are facing. It's fighting against evil, you can say, because they are fighting religion. They don't want any religion. It's not about conflict between religions, but about people, they don't even want religion in this country. That's the thing. But when we came here, we thought we can live our religion, our life, teach our kids freely, but it came out no. is not true. If you don't like what is there, you have to go back to your, original country. Was not accepted. We are Canadian. We have to fight for our rights, teach our kids our values, practice our religions. We don't need to just forget our identity because we live in Canada. It's not fair. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
So I'm together with Anan in the same fight. And the strength of our group is we are multi-religious. I'm there, Anan is there. We have Christian, Muslim, Jewish people fighting together and standing for what we know is right. And that's a strength of being interreligious. We spoke earlier. Yeah, stand for what we believe. Because many people believe the same we do. They're scared. Like I'm sure among the students, there are many that stand for the same values as Lina, but they're scared to express it. So sometimes if some of us can express it and get the other one to really say what they are, what they believe, what their thinking is, but people are scared now. We are not it's not freedom anymore. People are scared to express what they are. So we have to be both strong enough to stand for what we believe. But as a student, I don't know. She wants to have a degree. If she doesn't get her degree, she doesn't get in politics, then the other one do. So it's a tough place.
Well, thank you, everyone. It's been an engaging discussion, and I think one thing we forget often is that all this is very new, because people have not been interacting across religious or cultural or racial differences for very long. Even 50 years ago, when I was still, after I was born, 50 years ago, it's not a long time ago, right? In fact, I'm a little older than 50. But it was rare that people of different religions met with each other. Even people of different races, black, white, yellow, some of us who are over 60 can remember that. So this is a very, very new experiment. Very new. So there are very few countries in the world where actually there is the freedom in the Constitution to believe different things. Very few countries. Right? If I go to Saudi Arabia, if I go to Iran, it's not as free as it is in Canada. I can't have my own convictions. If I go to China, it's not the case. Even in Russia, it's still under very strict restrictions of what you can do and cannot do. But in Canada, in the United Kingdom, in Australia, there's a different system, right? Even France, even the United States right now is in trouble. The United States is in trouble right now. But historically, the United States guarantees the freedom of religion, the freedom of assembly. But remember, it's been a long battle. It was just 50 years ago that Martin Luther King was assassinated. And he's the one that actually fought for the right of black Americans to have the right to vote, to have in many parts of the United States, that wasn't allowed. So what I'm trying to say here is this experiment of interreligious dialogue, interracial communication. You know, I'm married to a Japanese person for the last 44 years. When my parents heard about this, especially my mother, not happy at all, right? Not happy at all. Why did you insult our family like this? You know? And I know other people who married someone black or someone Muslim. I have a cousin. His father was criticizing me for marrying a Japanese, and then his son married a Muslim. And he kind of woke up. It happened to him, right? So what I'm trying to say is, this whole experiment right now, what we're going through, we're like the pioneers. You talk about, go back to your country. Well, my family, I think we're white. I think we're Catholic, right? Because I'm Italian. But when we came here, the French Canadian said, you can't go to the same school as us, right? You can't play with us. This is in the 60s and the 50s, before the language law, right? That's why most Italians in Quebec went to an English school. That's why the Jews in Quebec went to an English school, right? So the mentality 50, 60 years ago was very different than what it is now. Things have changed. Somehow we're a little more tolerant, but this is a slow process. It's a very slow process. And I want to remind you that even in Canada, 100 years ago, women had no rights. They had no right to vote. 1942, they got the right to vote in Quebec. And in 1969, they got the right to get a bank account. To get a bank account, right? I know some women had a hard time with their husband. They were working. They couldn't have a bank account, right? This is what it was in Quebec, in Montreal, 50 years ago. So things change slowly. So let's believe that things will be better 50 years from now, okay? But we're the pioneers. We're the pioneers in making this happen. That's all.
Hello, my name is Paul. Just to go back to your query about, I'm not going to point left or right to say who's right or wrong, but just going to use as the people standing on the huddle over there thinking are being fueled by something, and the other people are being fueled by something. And this is the media, social media fuels. And as my colleague said before, sometimes there's fake news everywhere. So who's the real owner of the truth? Really, no one. But how do we reverse that? How can we, I'm just using our brains collectively here to see if in your mind there's a out-of-the-box answer, something to think about that could reverse the steam engine right now that's going to chaos, right? Because I feel your shoes being torn. I'm being bombarded by all these emails and facts and everything, and I know, and I don't know who's right, who's wrong, but this can't stay because they're going to clash. They got to come to fist and baseball bat to the head and so on like that, you know? As you said before, people have been doing that for many, many years ago, but right now we're really new because information is so accessible at your fingertips, but we don't know under we put it on the microscope if it's legit or not. Is it really a cancer cell or is it really a good cell? And I don't know your fight as well, madame, and the interreligious, because I'm part of interreligious dialogue as well, where we have to listen and be curious about the other and try to see if we could come up with something. I don't know. It's hard to say put the world on pause, but I think the answer would be, with all the brains together, to have a way of breathe in and breathe out. Just pause, put it on pause a bit, calm down. I have been at a solidarity dialogue last week where it turned into a debate instead of a real dialogue from me, talking to me, in a level of curiosity, naming things what they are. And the guy says, oh, you can't call that a genocide. This is wrong. No, genocide, that's the number you get, then it's genocide. You know, like, he was the owner of the truth, then it turned into a debate instead of a real dialogue. And this exists everywhere. I'm just naming them, I'm not pointing fingers to anyone, but sitting as a group here together, and other people's in the group or circles, what is the word that comes to my mind is resonance, is that if you listen to a concert, or if you walk into sacred places, or if you walk in the woods, you feel peace inside of you. And that's sometimes by the slow pace of a wave on the lake, the rhythm, and taking the time to slow down. Maybe we're going too fast in the world as it is today. So I don't have the answer. I'm just putting stuff on the table for us to think about, that don't give up, and please do not give up at a time when you could sometime let's slow down a bit to see if something could emerge from that, because Mother Nature is going to take over soon. It's going to be pissed off at us, especially the plastic container, as you were saying. So thank you very much.
On va continuer autour de la table. Ok, c'est un bon endroit pour partager, collaborer, réseauter. Donc, on vous invite à l'extérieur. Il fait beau soleil.